the best teams in the world.
Many a great series from day number 1 here, and that is just the start here of the group stage. Not only those upsets that we saw coming forward, but even Nomia playing so well with Fat, and of course the ever so gentle Robodoba Dread showing us some great stuff.
Yeah, no, I was really impressed. You know, specifically I think with Nomia, it's got to come down to the D.Va, right? Like, Fat had such a high impact on the D.Va, one of the first teams to bust out the D.Va in this tournament, and so that is something, you know, for their first series of today that I'm really looking forward to.
Let's take a look at the group stage that has not only began, but also is now well underway here, as we do have Group A with a few 2-0s sitting in there, but of course MVP Black with a 1-1 against Roll20. They find themselves in the middle of the table, and then over to Group B as well, with a lot of 2-0 sweeps across the board. Tetcher, anything that really stands out as a surprise, other than the original surprises that we actually
Yeah, I was
mentioned?
about to say, no one came into this expecting to come into day 2 and say, yeah, by the way, Australia is currently ahead of Korea.
True.
No one expected to come into that. But other than that, we mentioned most of these surprises that we've already had. It is only the first day. We have some spectacular matches. Yeah. And yeah, basically, we had lots of surprises. And currently, score-wise, just that single 2-0 and the fact that Korea and America both got a 1-1, only giving them 1 point as opposed to 3, that is a huge deal.
Time for the schedule, because we do have 6 series for today. And again, as a reminder, it is all best of 2s. You go 1-1, you earn 1 point. You go 2-0, you earn 3 points. You go 0-2, you earn nada, nothing, zip. So we will have, later on down the line, a few good matches standing out there, but we will be starting things off with Fnatic going up against Nomia. 2 teams that yesterday did win their series. They were victorious. Fan, both teams looked impressive yesterday.
Yeah, this is one of the matches that I'm really looking forward to today. I think it's going to be potentially one of the closer ones. It's hard to say for sure because Nomia, you know, they did play SPT, who is kind of, you know, you don't really know where they are at the moment, but Fnatic is very strong. They're looking very strong. I think this match will really tell us where Nomia stands in the group.
I think something that surprised all of us really is the fact that they were so willing to say, we have Samuro. Deal with it.
A lot of teams did that. They sort of came in with just something that in the lead up we didn't really see. Like Dingses came in with Kerrigan, Fnatic came in with Samuro, several teams came in with D.Va.
Yeah.
It is interesting that they're so willing to show that, but a lot of the teams have said, oh yeah, that's our minor surprises. We have so much more.
Don't forget as well, you can join in the chat with the hashtag #EtherFnatic on Nomia, and that's going to be continuing throughout the day. You can vote as to who you think is going to be victorious in these games, or who you just want to be victorious in these games. So make sure to get involved at home as well, whilst we are all very much so involved here alongside you. So let's talk about Nomia just for a moment here before we properly introduce them. It was great to watch how Fat was able to utilize the D.Va, how they were all playing around the D.Va, and even the maps that they were using it on. It was very tailored to those maps and the way they executed it.
Yeah, and it seems like the Mecha Explosion was like one of the coolest things coming out from Fat's performance. It wasn't just D.Va's being a problem, D.Va's providing harassment up to the front line. It was mainly that he was able to utilize what a lot of consider the core of D.Va effectively, and that makes me hope that, you know, if Fat 94 on the D.Va play could have high impact here against Fnatic, but I think Fan said it best. SPT is a big question mark in terms of power of this tournament. Nomia did 2-0, but this is the best indicator of where Nomia stands in power.
Well, they've traveled further than anybody to get here, has our Australian team. So for now, let's check in with Nomia, our first team of the day.
On Nomia, I don't think we really have any key players. It's just we all work as a team. Everyone has their moments of glory and then failing, but I guess maybe Arcana, when he's in the zone, is probably our key player, because we have a joke within the team calling it getting sweaty. It's just when you're trying extra hard and he probably sweats the most when he plays. Our team's major strengths are definitely team fighting and just taking advantage of people being out of position and then pushing a lead when we get picks. I feel like our weaknesses compared to the other international teams would be a small map pool and hero pools. While they have a much larger range of heroes to play from, we don't really have as big of a hero pool. If we were to win the MSB, it would be just a lot of luck and someone's out there looking after us, because it's very unlikely.
That is indeed our Australian representative in Nomia. And we've seen a good majority of this roster from event to event to event over the last couple of years, and they've come on leaps and bounds. One of my questions to you guys is D.Va, I don't think we've seen enough of them to say that D.Va is their absolute linchpin, that they need it, but is that going to be a focus for them once again? And then likewise, is Fnatic looking at that saying, maybe we want to take that away from them?
Yeah, I imagine it has to be. I mean, they showed willingness to play it not only on maps that, you know, are considered D.Va favorites, such as Infernal Shrines, but they pulled it out even on Cursed Hollow, which is not a map where I would look at it and really think, oh yeah, this is where I pick D.Va. And even then, they really showed what they can do with D.Va on that map. They looked really practiced on it. So I have to imagine that they're very practiced with that hero on a lot of maps.
Looking at how they qualified through, what else is a strength for Nomia? Because obviously we only saw 2 games yesterday. What else comes to the table when you think Nomia?
We already know that they have an incredibly solid Falstad, which has been run many times by them through Western Clash and through their qualifiers. However, Falstad fallen a little bit off. He was played, I think, 2 times so far. I'm going to look at Dread because his stats
don't actually have it up. I don't have it up right now, sorry.
But he's not been picked very much at all, but he's still a strong hero for Arcana, who before this event we would say maybe the key player. Now that we've seen that D.Va coming in, we're like, okay, this is turning into a balanced team where different players can carry given different heroes.
I think one awesome thing with Nomia specifically that we often don't kind of consider when looking at the power of a team is their ecosystem within ANZ has been limited to the competition. They've always complained that they do not have somebody to scrim up against, somebody to better themselves, but they have obviously stepped up their game. It's been a continual climb, and to show that level of competitiveness with nothing to cross compare to find it with themselves, to find that drive, even though many regions would give up there. I think that it, more than anything, shows that Nomia is here to play. Like that mentality to grow in the long run.
And they actually have quite a wealth of experience against European teams.
Yeah, that for me is like why Nomia could, if they aren't a world-class team now, I mean, if they keep going, it's just they have something within themselves to really show we can improve.
All right, well, let's check in with our other team that is going to be participating in our first series of the day. One of the most respected teams here at the Mid-Season Brawl. It is, of course, Fnatic.
We don't just have one key player, we have 5 key players. And it comes down to me and Wooby with drafting and game sense, I would say. Shrimpy with his wide variety of hero pool. Breeze just being the best tank in Europe, in my opinion. And same goes for Smexy, just being the best support in the Western scene. I would say our team's weaknesses are mainly on mentality. And it could be things like tilting and how to deal with tough situations and losses and how to come back from a rough moment. You just have to help each other get back up. Our expectations going into the MSB is to win the whole thing. I'm not gonna say with overconfidence that we are gonna win the whole thing, but obviously as a top tier team, we're aiming to win the tournament, and I would say our chances are really high.
Some glimmers of humbleness there from Quacknix, but I think deep down, they are quite confident about the position that they are in currently as a team that has risen to the top, took that second place at BlizzCon last year, and now here in 2017, they are looking for an international championship.
They very much are, and you know, I think Quacknix's mentality there kind of shows that they are fully confident, but they also are trying to immediately remind themselves, tap the brakes. Right,
yes.
that is the only thing that can stop them, I think, in their minds, is themselves, their mentality, putting the cart before the horse, expecting the victory. And I really do think that if they can hold that together, at minimum second place for this team.
Yeah, I'm really excited about what he said in terms of them having 5 key players as well. Just drawing comparisons back to when Cloud9 won the 2015 championship.
Yeah.
That's how I felt about the team as well. Every single player on our team was individually very talented, probably the best in their role. And if you just think about teams that have won world championships before, MVP at their prime, you know, Tempest at their prime, every single player on the team feels like a key player. And I think that's actually really important.
Yeah, it definitely does. The roster's become so flushed out over the year and a bit that they've actually sat with this roster. So looking at what they did yesterday, though, there is the Samuro. There is the potential for other wackiness. Do we expect more of that coming out from them today, or going up against a team like Nomia, do they just kind of rein it in and go back to standard? What do you think about all of this?
I think they bring out something. purely for the same reason that they will bring out the Samura. They say they have many different things. So if they have something else that would be a minor surprise, this could be the time to bring it out. Another thing to put fear into the Korean team's hearts, into L5, and make it much more difficult for them.
Well, our maps are going to be Sky Temple and Cursed Hollow, with bans towards Warhead Junction and Dragonshire.
So big maps, and the weird part of that is Nomia selected Sky. That is quite weird to me, because Nomia seem very interested about team fight maps a lot of the time, where Sky involves a lot of split pushing. It's a very Falstad-friendly map, but it has very few choke points, which can actually maybe choke out the Diva.
Well, let's get into it. Game number 1 here between Fnatic and Nomia into the draft, straight away onto the Zeratul. They want nothing to do with it.
One thing to consider, though, even though this map does not actually have very many choke points for the Diva, what it does have is an objective that takes a long period of time, is very strong, and it remains in a single territory for a long period of time, which then adds up to a mecha explosion being relevant for at least a couple of seconds to assure a minimal of a couple of shots.
There is the talent, right, where you are allowed to extend the explosion and increase damage. Technically,
maybe
I think it would be
even
kind of
longer.
cool on this map.
I didn't even
It's
think
uncommon
of that.
takenly, of course, but
Yeah,
could be
I
cool.
can see your logic. That's really interesting.
It is a double-edged sword, though, because even though you extend it to 8-second timer, you know, you can stay there for the first 4 seconds if that's the case.
True.
Yeah, it's taking the risk. It is risk management of, if I stay in this, am I going to get stunned on the way out, or do I give up the shots?
Yeah.
It's interesting psychology, and this is the entire point of teams bringing out Diva here. A lot of teams seem to be figuring it out, which is why some teams are picking it and some teams aren't.
We already see the Dahaka, though, here for Fnatic. That's putting emphasis into the global. And Vala Ariel, though, for Nomia. So Nomia transferring a little bit to, you know, the hyper carry, support the Vala strategy. Do we have an official term for this strategy? It just seems too standard to not have a nickname.
It's the Holy Trinity if it has a Tassadar in
Yeah, it's the
it.
Holy Trinity
we
if it
call it
has
the Holy
Zarya
Trinity?
or Tassadar.
So is this the Holy Duo?
I know some people call it the Valario or something, if you just have these
Valario.
two.
Either way, Nomia, in fact, is going to dip their hand into the whatever word we give the title there.
I think we can just call it Vala Ariel, guys. I think that's fine.
No, refuse.
Valario, there we go.
It's happening.
Okay.
But yeah, we see both teams kind of pandering to their strengths right now. Fnatic with the Dahaka pick implies that they're going to be going for a more macro style of play on this map, whereas Nomia, you heard it in their preview video, you know, they think they're strong at team fighting, and right away they lock in a very strong team fight composition.
Fnatic, though, already starting off with some heroes that excel at picking off individual heroes one at a time, and Ariel herself, without some extra protection of maybe a second support, can be very risky. Uther would have been a very nice hero for this. Tassadar, still very reasonable to fit into that role as well, maybe even Zarya.
The composition that Fnatic has right now, it seems to be the most successful composition style, just the hyper-aggressive with the Genji. I mean, it just feels very Fnatic style. It complements the map because the objective is not a very macro-focused map. Genji's going to thrive here. So I do feel like, though this rotation wasn't necessarily unorthodox from Fnatic, it did kind of put the ball in Nomia's court to where their next 2 picks are extremely crucial. And if it's kind of a misplay, I feel like it's going to be a very snowballed game for Fnatic.
What do you think the ban goes to?
The ban here should, well, they still need a tank for Fnatic, right, and 1 more damage, so they're probably considering their options there. You might look at banning something like a Chromie for the hard counter on the Oriole, or another mage, or just another damage dealer in general. So we see the Li Ming as the mage ban.
Wanting to avoid a double reset, so even more fear into this hyper, you know, the possible snowball. What I view as more of like a micro-intensive strategy, but when it goes off, it really kind of goes off. So I do like that from Nomia. It's going to put a little bit more of a pause button, which is usually needed with the Holy Trinity.
So we do have Fnatic's ban now. Second support would be quite reasonable to ban out. Also, anything with very hard target CC to remove Genji. The Vikings being a hovered. Now, Genji can gain very effective resets off the Vikings, but that's the same logic as arguing for Li Ming, where if the Vikings play well enough, it shouldn't happen.
Yeah, the Li Ming ban over the Chromie was kind of odd to me, because I really do think that Chromie is a better counter for Oriole if you're just planning on running an Oriole. It looks like Nomia might have Vikings strat up their sleeves from the way this pick ban phase worked out. The Li Ming ban makes a lot more sense if you're planning on running a Vikings, because Li Ming just gets insane value off of Vikings, and the fact that Fnatic second banned it must mean that they've scouted that this is a potential strategy that Nomia does on Sky.
And it makes a lot of sense too, because when you do have the Holy Trinity, that's one of the most dominant laning phases you can possibly have. If you have the Vikings side soaking the entire time while that's happening, your 4-man is beyond effective, which is always what you want in the Vikings. So I actually, now that we kind of bring that to light, I agree. It's a really cool situation that we do find in the middle half of that draft.
Yeah, it seems very likely they were going for the Holy Trinity 4-man with the Vikings. So we'll have to see how they adapt now that that strategy is taken away from them. Because if they were planning on cheesing that way, you know, it's not available anymore.
Okay, so double Angel comp, lots of protection, and a Nazebo. Now, does this give them enough potential to survive till the late game to get that Nazebo potential?
That's exactly why I don't necessarily hate this rotation out of Nomia. It's safe in the sense that it can survive the Genji and moving in, because Nazebo, one of the safest backliners that you can probably ask for in survivability. But one thing I want to see teams start moving into, it feels like when the Genji with those 1 through 9 skirmish compositions seem to be picked, everybody goes, let's make it to the late game, but no one has made it there yet. Most of the teams, especially if you are not the favorite team, the odds of you making it to the later part of the game, because you're saying essentially we're not going to make a mistake for 12 minutes, 13 minutes, and that is unreasonable. And so it's not that I totally dislike this out of Nomia, but I do think it was a risk. If it pays off, they're even, I think it will really thrive. But if it fails in, again, 1 through 9, Fnatic can really take off in this game.
Especially the idea of going up against a Dahaka, a global here, that's going to propel Fnatic a little bit faster, and if they get that level advantage, they will push it further.
Like if this is a Grey main, something very offensive along with the Genji, okay, they'll go with an Abathur and a Variant. Not going to be as snowbally, definitely more emphasis onto the macro here. So that, I feel like, actually helped a lot of Nomia's problems.
Yeah, Genji is currently their only damage with the help of Abathur on it. Like, Varian does have a decent amount of damage output as well, so does Dahaka now. So they've sort of gone very much everyone can really handle themselves in this composition for Fnatic, but it isn't a quick ending comp, like you were saying, Dread.
When I see this type of composition, though, I get pretty worried in my head. For example, if I was drafting on Nomia's side, the thing you have to consider is right now Fnatic has 2 globals to 0, and every one of their heroes is extremely hard to kill. So the way it looks like Fnatic is playing is we're just going to play macro style. You want a team fight, we're just not going to give you the team fight. If 1 tempo spawns, we soak 2 lanes, we ignore it. 2 tempos spawn, we trade, we still outsoak you. So how are you going to force the team fight? And without a global, I'm a little bit worried for Nomia.
Yeah. No, I very much agree with you. And even Arthas, out of the role that they were kind of aiming towards, it's not like he is the best to make up for that weakness even. You know, it only banks more into the we want to team fight you strategy, which now with the beautiful transition, Fnatic moving to feigning aggression, then the minute their opponent baits into the full team fight, they go, okay, now take a step back, let's move towards the macro game, and you have nowhere to move. It was really clever what Fnatic was able to do in that draft.
Do you think where the Tyrael Nazebo was drafted in, they could have potentially had a different warrior in that role to say if they needed to react down the line, then they have a more solid single frontliner to then try and react to what else Fnatic had coming?
I mean, that is an option. I'll personally say that into Genjis or any heroes that like to open a fight in a specific manner, I adore having Tyrael on my team.
Right.
Any counter momentum measure I can have to those heroes, I take what they know to be successful and completely break the rules on it. So I do really actually like the Tyrael there. I just fear that, again, because it was so committed to team fighting and so ignoring the macro, that was the biggest draw. But yeah, you could compensate by dropping the Tyrael.
Prediction?
Fnatic. Not even, I feel like their draft was clever. I mean, everything works out for them.
I'm amazed Nomia picked this map against Fnatic. It has to be Fnatic.
Yeah, I really think Sky Temple is a macro map, and 2 globals to 0, like my inner GFE is just screaming Fnatic right now, so gotta go with Fnatic.
All right, well, thank you very much, guys. As we get ready for game number 1 of the day, we're gonna head over to Gillyweed and Trixler for all the commentary.
Thank you, guys. And before we get started, Vala and Ariel were talked about by the panelists, but you have a name for that combo, Gilly.
Yeah, the Hopeful Cowgirl.
The Hopeful Cowgirl. Get Gillied, you at home. Let's go ahead and get this started here. Nomia taking on Fnatic. This is probably my fan favorite here to win the tournament, Fnatic. But Nomia, the sweethearts of the tournament, you can't help but root for them.
Everybody loves Nomia. Their interviews are always so much fun. We'll introduce them in a second, but first, the members of Fnatic. Wubby playing Dahaka, Quacknix playing Genji, Smexy playing Uther, Schwimpy playing Abathur, and Varian will be played by Breeze.
To the right side, the sweethearts themselves, Nomia here in the red, Arcaner on Vala, Vanilla going to be playing Ariel, Fat94 on Tyrael, John Ho going to be on Azebo, and Robodoba on Arthas.
As you were saying, everybody loves Nomia, and a lot of that goes back to what Dread was talking about at the panel. Their will to continue to improve despite not having always consistent practice in their region and only really relying on tournament games in their regionals to be able to succeed makes them, you just can't help but love this team.
Yeah, they're unique, they're lovable, they're great, they're self-deprecating sometimes, but to a point where you don't mind hearing it from them because they're so about being some of the best. But they are facing off against the best in Europe probably right now, just based on what we've seen in the last couple of days. Can they hang here against Fnatic? That will be the question, especially with the composition that Fnatic has. Genji has been wonderful for them, but Breeze on Varian knows how to get into those fights and really set up his team for the coordination and the kills that Fnatic just excels at.
Fnatic has a composition that, of course, if they need to fight, they can and they will, and they'll do well with this composition, but they also don't have to with their double global. They can tease and tantalize Nomia to want to fight. We know that Nomia feels like their team fighting is where they excel because it's where they can get the most reliable practice is in that area. But both of these teams have so much respect for each other. You know, Fnatic does believe that ANZ is the strongest of our non-league regions. And meanwhile, Arcaner, he feels like Fnatic always plays at their top level. So there's a lot of respect going back and forth between these two teams. Let's see how it plays out.
Yeah, the skill is what matters here. Can Nomia hang out? Wubby here on the bottom will be laning against John as John works on getting those stacks for that late game. While meanwhile in the middle, we have a bit of a scuffle between our two teams as Nomia will take first blood with the temple shots hitting on the middle fort here. No one has touched the top one for now.
There is going to be a stock coming in. Does Nomia realize it in time, trying to move away from the drag, but it won't be enough. 2 will be lost here. I don't see Vanilla getting out of this one. 2 quick kills to start things off for Fnatic on day 2.
And on full display there, Fnatic's ability to find a target, isolate, and get a kill is shown there. They put pressure on Vanilla at first to Ariel, but Ariel actually moved into the opposing team's territory, which allowed for them to change at the last second to put their pressure on Vala. Vala was melted, and then afterwards, so was Ariel. Fnatic being on point already here in the early stages of the tournament here.
Things will change like that once Crystal Aegis is a possibility, sanctification too, but for now, Nomia needs to be cautious about how they engage around these temples when they're up against a Dahaka like this. Wubby will find his mark with his drags.
And typically when you have a Dahaka go in for that rotation and you have an Abathur or even someone in the bottom lane like Nazebo, you'll push in and at least get an experience lane. But with Abathur being here for Fnatic, they were able to rotate down the bottom and soak the experience, and they now have a half-level lead due to their rotation. Nazebo tried to push in that bottom lane, but not really getting too much value out of that engage.
Did you see Wubby combo with the Temple Guardian? He's like, I'll hold his arms back. You get him, you get him. It worked. He almost got the takedown there. But the most important thing is, of course, that Fnatic could bully Nomia off of the shrine, taking that and continuing that experience advantage.
Wubby the bodyguard, man, helping out with the temple, getting the takedowns. And Fnatic is not minding any pressure as they move straight in. Wow, is there a Vala on that team or not?
Reset City, we call that super deleted in NA. Quacknix hanging out, willing to dive underneath the fort. Vanilla has used the heal from the well. Hammer of Justice comes out, and the heal was not fast enough. Now Robodobo will be the next to fall here underneath the fort and all.
Fnatic is tanking the fort shots here before the minion wave actually got here to get 3 takedowns under the opposing team's fort. That is ridiculous, especially when you think about it. There's an Abathur on. You don't typically see these type of dives in the early game, 1 through 9, and yet somehow, some way, Fnatic's pulling off. Schwimpy himself even dodging out on John, getting an engage and a kill.
Well, think about the composition that Fnatic has. This never die comp. They have full parry build in effect now with shield wall. There's 2 protects right there. They have the deflecting protect 2. They are everywhere, and they can just fully deathball, allowing Abathur to soak lanes. They get yet another kill on Arthas. Drag again hitting its mark. Ariel, a second takedown.
Oh my gosh, my heart is bleeding here for Nomia as multiple kills have occurred. 7 takedowns in the first 5 minutes of the game. Fnatic and their relentless pressure continues as they take a massive lead and move towards level 10, which before it even hits, before the second Sky Temple becomes available to be grabbed. That's how far ahead Fnatic is right now. Typically, you're hitting a level 9 around that time spawning, but they're already on their way till 10 and more.
That means that Nomia have tough decisions to make for this next temple phase when it spawns in the bottom lane, trying to figure out what they can do now. A lot of the mercenary camps have already been taken away. There's a fear that once Fnatic hits 10, they are so far ahead that they not only can get the temple, but they could just get the boss, push with that, and leave the temple alone for a long time, only picking it up once they have gotten other advantages first. Nomia wants to slow this down. They hope to get their giant camp, but Fnatic's pressure is in every place at once. They know every idea that Nomia wants to have and make happen before they can even make that happen.
And it makes it so much easier for that they have Dahaka here. Dahaka's on the bottom temple. They have started Giants, Boss, and Temple all before Nomia can even do anything here. With Novia sitting at 8.5, then we're going to see them rotate to the top or in the middle, so experience get towards 10, while Fnatic just continues to put pressure on the opposing team. This is perfect textbook play here from Fnatic. Moving into the boss, and Nomia doesn't even hint at possibly moving in to stop this from occurring. And what can they do? Honestly, just make sure that they can stop it. With Taunt being up, Dahaka coming with a drag, you're not going to stop that boss.
They know at least that between getting Temple and very likely boss, that all the members except Abathur are here, so they are trying to push elsewhere. They are trying to get heroic abilities. They had to push in top. Mid was a little bit closer. Once the boss got picked up, they needed to send John back to defend. So they stayed there as long as they could. But they're keeping up in top. They get that fourth. They are very near to getting heroic abilities.
Yes, this was their best step to having a solid defense. Get that top 4 taken out, grab the experience, and that way they're closer to level 10. 4 Giants, a boss, a minion wave, and a full team of Fnatic sitting here at the front wall, beating on top of the keep. Nomia has to be careful. They cannot lose more than 2 members, or we could have a pretty aggressive push here from Fnatic.
There is a double Genji on the field now, so there's a little bit of time where you won't have the hat there. Schwimpy's going to dive deep and try to put some pressure on the rest of Nomia to get them to back off and deal with him first. This allows them to take down the keep. Detainment Strike knocks Breeze back away. Sanctification's been used. That means heroics are online for Nomia. They're trying to make sure they just don't lose the game at this point.
Strafe has been used. Arcaner helping out with the damage. Vanilla here with the hope as well will keep them alive, and they will defend here. The Sanctification from Fat94, making sure that no one did fall victim to Fnatic. Fnatic, though, happily walks away with the keep taken away at 7 minutes into the game. And it gets worse from here. They're moving into the middle rotation, taking out the fort, while Abathur is double soaking.
Speaking of Abathur, full symbiote build, wondering if he'll take spatial efficiency here to go with the needle spine or Soma transference to offer some healing. Could even still, I guess, go into Locust build if he wanted to from there and do sort of a hybrid build. But no, Soma transference, the pickup there with pressurized glands, maybe even getting Envenom spikes. Honestly, if Fnatic make it to 16, but Nomia, they have stabilized. They have heroic abilities. That's their first step.
That they have. They have taken a step here, but can they move into a kill and start to get themselves in a great spot? Look in this top right corner, actually. Ariel gets caught out of position as Genji dives in with the help of Breeze and gets a kill on the support. Nomia forced to pull away, having to wait for their Ariel to respawn.
I will note that I feel like John is a very capable Nazebo player. I love he has super impactful zombie walls. You can see that he does hit his mark. He does catch people in there, and then I've seen him get some awesome kills just by hitting somebody, an assassin in the backline at the very back, and being able to push them forward, running away from the spiders. But it's just getting to the point where you can have that effectiveness, and Nomia is so far behind Fnatic now. They're hoping to get even a fight down 13 Talontiers. They steal back their bruisers, just full understanding of how far behind they really are at this point in the game.
The cost of those bruisers, though, was Army of the Dead and a Strafe being used for Nomia, which makes it much more difficult for them to move in for the engage and stop this tentacle from being taken out. We're going to have a full 5-on-5 fight here as all members move into the middle. Sanctification popped out, but multiple members are low on health. Genji getting resets left and right here. Quacknix burning through. Vala, the only member left. Scratch that. No members left here as Fnatic easily, it seems like, wipes the entire team of Nomia.
Dude, that was nuts from Quacknix. Are you kidding me? Dude, the whole analyst desk just went, oh, at once. The Dragon Blade, 3-man Swift Strike down through the end. That should be just enough for game at that point. Fnatic heading for core. It is falling rapidly. One swift victory, swift team fight, swift strike. Taken out is Nomia.
Gilly, that was a 9-minute and 22-second victory from Fnatic. Nomia, being the sweethearts of the tournament, I thought they maybe had a little bit more spice ready to go, but it seems like the Nazebo strat was not something that was going to be working out here as Fnatic applied the pressure and took everything they wanted without even having a single kill come their way.
I love what the panel talked about, and that is Nazeebo right now finds such a hard place in the meta because these early aggressive compositions. Yes, Fnatic had an Abathur. Yes, they had a Varian with Taunt, but they also still had Genji and could put on the hurt right from the beginning. I can't wait to hear what the analysts have to say about that game. Let's kick it back over to them. Maybe.
Hello.
What's up, Fan?
What up? How's it going,
How you
guys?
doing, Fan?
I'm doing pretty good.
Tell us
How are
about
you?
that game, Fan.
Am I bringing us straight to a replay here?
No, you're
I
just
don't
telling us
know,
about
you're
that game.
just-
Oh,
some
that game
shot.
was pretty disgusting. I mean, you saw the
Sorry.
Globos being abused.
Thank you very much, Fan. Welcome back, ladies and gents. I think Gilly's not wrong. When that did happen,
Yeah.
we were like, "Oh, that was crazy."
Play of the game.
Absolutely,
Exactly, dude.
so
You just
good.
get the animation starts. It doesn't even let the game finish. Just add that. That was so crazy.
Yeah,
That's why Genji's first pick, you know. You see the
man.
power of the hero right there.
I mean, even before the slash on through, that was Dragon Blade getting
Yeah.
a massive,
Was hitting
massive
three
value.
heroes every time with every swing, then left them to get more damage, and then went back through to
Yeah.
get the kills.
Before we
Oh.
continue on, Fan, we do have your replay. I know you were eager to get into it before, but now you can go.
Nice. So my replay is actually more of an early game replay here. So if we could just pause for 1 second right here. You see on the mini map, you see this is the power of the globals I was talking about. We have heroes for Nomia in the other two lanes that are not globals. So at best, this can be a 3 versus 5 for them. And when you don't have any globals, there's nothing you can do to stop this kind of power play from Fnatic. They just 5v3 invade. They know you're doing the camp, and we can play on here. And as soon as they see them, it's too late. You know, the second you see Fnatic, 2 heroes are already dead because of their composition. Nothing you can do. They have a fort here. It's 4 heroes diving the fort. You know, the minion wave's not even inside the fort, but it doesn't matter because of the number disadvantage that happened from the globals. So this was really the start of the end. We had that very flashy Genji play, but, you know, at that point, they were already 3 levels up, a talent tier up. And the reason why they were so far ahead was because you know, there's 2 globals to nothing. They can outmaneuver you. They can out-strategize you. And that's what I was talking about when I was talking about the macro of the map.
I don't know if you agree, but that kind of skill disparity in that game in particular, when I see that kind of rotation and control of the map and stuff like that from Fnatic against Nomia, it reminds me very much of L5 in BlizzCon last year, where they would just dominate maps and almost give you no chance to actually recover when each lane has been pressured systematically, bot going from top to bot and just doing whatever they want.
No, I completely agree. It just, I mean, they take a composition that shouldn't spike early, but they play it so well that they get a little bit of advantage, then abusing the globals to further that advantage, and then you're suddenly like, how are we sitting here? Like, as they said on the panel, like, you're level 10 before you're supposed to be level 10 because you accelerated experience by just killing your opponents that effectively.
Yep. 6-minute keep in that game with Boss. That is how much pressure they had on. They had taken down top. They took top 4, and then within a minute were taking a keep.
You say that, but it's like, it's boss, it's double giants, all timed out well after everything's gone on the map. And
At
then just,
6 minutes, though.
Yeah,
that's early.
It's brutal.
And the most important thing is they could do whatever they wanted. They were free to set up that however they wanted because they were level 10 to 8 from these kills from the globals for the early game.
And so one thing for me